Do we have too much government?
We need to put people ahead of corporate profits.
This system is so lopsided.
This threat is a real threat to democracy.
And I think that's really important. That's something we haven't been doing in this country for a long time.
Where do you start? What do you do? How do you do it?
Access to Democracy is sponsored by Thomson Reuters, providing legal professionals with the intelligence, technology, and human expertise they need to find trusted answers. Products include Westlaw, Practical Law, and Firm Central legal practice management software for small law firms. Thomson Reuters, the answer company. Online at thomsonreuters.com. Access to Democracy is made possible in part by a donation from Firefly Credit Union. Firefly is the new name of U.S. Federal Credit Union, which has proudly served the financial needs of the Greater Twin Cities community since 1925. At Firefly, we guide our members forward and give them the power to chase dreams by delivering the financial solutions they need to get ahead. From checking accounts to mortgages, we'll light the way. We are Firefly Credit Union, and this is Life Illuminated. And Dr. Charles Crutchfield of award-winning Crutchfield Dermatology in Eagan, acknowledged as one of the nation's best physicians. A Minnesota native who trained at the Mayo Clinic, Dr. Crutchfield personally treats all patients and states that experience counts and quality matters. Crutchfield Dermatology. Look good, feel great, with beautiful skin.
Welcome back. Access to Democracy returns. Alan Miller returns. And Mouli Vaidyanathan. After 3 years, I finally got it reasonably correct, of actually SolarPads returns. A very, very unique inventor of a type of solar energy that is now in 34 states, you just told me. So welcome back.
Thanks, Alan.
Let's talk about solar energy, and let's talk about some of the good things and some of the bad things in terms of government, because I know you're facing a lot of competition from basically Asia, a little bit from Europe, and those governments are subsidizing manufacturers far more than anything that happens here. So it's got to make it tougher for you.
Yes, I think the currency regulations, the ability to do business in a very clean environment that we have here in Eagan and Minnesota is always there's a cost to it. And the higher labor costs, and they're all good things for the long run. I think nobody would trade living in Minnesota to another place because of its fantastic water, fantastic environment, beautiful
I describe
trees.
it as quality of life. And
Perfect.
we think, having come from the East Coast 20 years ago, that you cannot compare the quality of life here in Minnesota.
That's well said, Alan. I mean, I completely second that issue. The good thing about solar energy is it started almost 5.4 billion years ago, and it's still going well. And it's the last 100 years has been really tough with climate change, and it's getting worse. But the challenge for the present generation is to see how to tackle it and to come up with good answers.
We know one thing, though. Even though the weather in Minnesota can be harsh for several months, the sun still shines during those periods. And when the sun shines, the solar pads are soaking up that energy and turning it into electricity.
Oh, 100%. The good thing about solar energy, it's extremely consistent year over year. If you were to take a year, its variation is within 5 to 10%. But the solar energy on a day-to-day basis is very, very volatile. It's like, you know, you may have a very cloudy day, you may have a very snowy day, but when you take it the winter as a whole, or the summer as a whole, or a year as a whole, it is very, very consistent and very dependable. And we have the technology now to convert that from you know, just sunlight and use it for a very good purpose instead of burning fossil fuels or other formats. The key reason why solar is most successful compared to other energy sources and is typically missed is the fact that solar can be put on your house. Solar can be put on the business. It can be put right on the property. Therefore, the generation site and the usage site is the same. The advantage of doing that is you don't have any transmission losses. Therefore, it's a very clean source. You cannot do that with nuclear, you cannot do that with diesel generation. It'll be very noisy neighborhood. So solar in the last 20 years
And it
has
doesn't
been
pollute like fossil fuels.
Thank you.
Pollute.
Yes, yes. Then there is no pollution, zero pollution. In fact, my calculation shows that the energy used in a solar panel within 2 years, after 2 years of its use, is completely green. So the first 2 years is what it's self-generation to make its own panel. After that, it is, and these panels last 25, 30, 40 years. In fact, there is an installation not too far in Burnsville. It was installed, you may know, in the transit station in,
Sure.
on Highway 13.
Right.
And that installation was done, I was told, in the 90s, early 90s. And it's still, it's 25 years later, it's still producing a lot of power. So
Now, your background is in engineering,
that's correct.
and you got into solar energy in a unique way, but one of the things you have done is done some inventing and come up with some patents that make your SolarPods unique. So
Correct.
tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, 9 years ago when I started the business, solar was installed on roofs by attaching using nails and screws to bolt the solar panels onto the roof. When I was on some of the early installations, I felt that was you're taking a perfectly good roof and putting holes on a roof, which was
Only leads to problems.
exactly. And in places like Minnesota, where you can have negative 40 degrees in the winter to plus 100 degrees in the summer, only it's a matter of time before any hole on a roof is going to leak. Whether it's going to leak in 5 years or 10 years or 15 years, at some point it is going to leak. So I thought about the problem, and 9 years ago I came up with the idea to put solar panels on roofs without any nails, without any screws, and it has become a pretty big hit and all over the US.
And it's
So we have-
unique. That's not only unique, but it's amazing to me that these panels stay on the roof, and they're secure, and there's not damage to the roof, which, as you said, is inevitable when you have nails being
Correct.
driven. So how do you do this? And it's
So-
your unique patent.
Yeah, so I've, again, 9 years ago I thought of an aeroplane, and if you look at an aeroplane stays in the air only because there is differential pressure between the bottom of the plane and the top of the plane, and making sure that the bottom of the plane has got high pressure compared to the top of the plane. Then I said, if a plane can go at 600 to 800 miles an hour very comfortably without any questions, why can't we keep object from not flying using the same principles? And we did the same thing. We came up with a wind engineered product that even at the highest wind will have high pressure on top of the panel compared to the bottom of the panel. Therefore, when in high wind, it is actually putting a compressive force and making sure it is on the roof and not flying off.
And that's yours, and that's unique, and that is why you're now in 34 states. Now, you told me a very interesting story. There's a couple that is well known here in Minnesota, and who we both know, and they have a home where they really believe in green energy.
Yes.
2 weeks ago, we had a terrific storm. We had winds up to 60 or 70 miles an hour. Now, they have 30 panels on their roof. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Tell us how they came out of that storm.
So they had put, Sean and Rebecca Otto put their panels 2 years ago, or the SolarPod on their roof, and they put 30 solar panels. It's about 9 kilowatts or 8.5 kilowatts of solar, and it powers their entire home. And one panel out of the 30 was damaged due to egg size hail, which we had 2 weeks ago. And that shows that 29 of them were perfectly fine, even when you got a egg size hailstorm through it.
And that was just the glass that was broken.
Correct.
On the
glass
top of the
was
panel.
correct.
So that's replaceable, and it's been replaced.
Yes.
But not only do they power their entire home and their farm, but they do something else, because both of them have electric cars.
Correct.
And what do they do?
So they take the excess energy, so that their home is not only completely zero CO2 or completely green, they also drive green. So they are a perfect example of practice what you preach. I mean, I support their cause completely, because they truly preach what they practice.
And both of their cars are powered by the solar energy.
Correct. They also have a wind farm, wind turbine in their facility. So I'm not sure what's the ratio of wind to solar. I have a feeling it is 1:1, but it could be something else. But so their home, from what I understand, is 100% powered by renewables, wind and sun.
I understand the same thing, so
Yeah.
both very talented couple, and
Certainly.
our favorites. Rebecca has been here many times. Sean has been here quite a few times.
Sure.
And a very talented guy in his own right, and of course she's running for governor.
Sure.
So,
Yeah. She's
one of our many Democratic candidates, and I think there's probably now about 4 Republican candidates at least that are running for governor, perhaps 5. So it's going to be a busy year next year.
That's right. That's right.
Politically.
That's right.
Now, your competition comes from, as we said, primarily Asia. Those manufacturers have a big advantage over you in terms of pricing and in terms of manufacturing, because their governments subsidize them rather substantially. Isn't that right?
That's, I mean, the small business is a huge disadvantage here in the U.S. It's the cost of doing business is very high. The regulations are very good. At the same time, it costs a lot of money, and one has to be very persistent to ensure we pass those regulatory requirements. Like UL listing is a good example. we have our system, SolarPod, is completely UL listed.
Which is Underwriters Laboratories, which
Correct.
is one of the safeguards that we have here in the United States.
Correct, and it costs a lot of money to get tested and to pass that testing. It took us nearly 6 months of back and forth with UL to get it approved, and then it's every quarter we get tested as well to ensure that we have the right quality and right standards. So those are all good things, but for a small business, I don't get any subsidy like other companies would get. And all of this has come through my personal organic growth of the company. So, and besides UL, we also have done quite a bit of wind tunnel testing. So that, as you know, it shouldn't fly off at
Right. And it hasn't flown off.
yeah, and in fact, we just installed a couple months ago right on the coast of Massachusetts, 236 kilowatt system, which was rated for 140 mile per hour wind loads. So the 60-70 that we saw just 2 weeks ago is nothing compared to the 140 that Massachusetts coast.
Right, twice as severe. Right.
Exactly, and we passed those as well, and it's installed and it's doing really well. So those are all the things that small businesses we face, and becoming big requires a lot of investments and a lot of risk, and that's the challenge that I have in the next few years, is how much to scale up and how much risk can we take and absorb to scale up.
Well, maybe we'll do a listing to put you on the stock market and go public.
That'll be great.
We can work on that also.
Certainly, yeah.
Now, with it all, you have been here in the United States for how many years?
I moved here in 1987, so I've lived in the U.S. Longer than I have lived in India. So.
And you come from India. Your family
Yes,
raised you in India.
Yeah, all of them are still there. I'm the only person who came here. So.
But you have multiple degrees in engineering and otherwise. Now, where did you obtain your degrees?
I went to got my PhD at the University of Wisconsin-Madison under Carl Loper, who passed away about 4 or 5 years ago. And Carl Loper was instrumental in teaching me several things in engineering, and I surely am grateful to him for giving giving me that opportunity. So. Certainly, and without him, I wouldn't have learned the many things that I learned, not only in engineering but in other areas of how to do business as well. So,
and here we find you. The business has grown, not rapidly, but slow, measured growth. You now have how many employees?
I have one part-time, and we have several contract employees. We would like to invest in them. We are doing so every year. We increase that amount because all of this is organically grown. We are not funded by any venture capitalist. We are not funded by any government. It's funded only by myself. So. And my family. So we have ensured we keep quality people, and all of the people that have been with us from the beginning almost, and we try to invest heavily.
Which says something positive about how the organization runs.
Yeah, we surely trust them, and we want to believe in their cause as well.
Now, for the average home, let's talk about how much would it cost them to implement solar energy?
There are two costs here, Alan. One is the cost of capital, And the second is after the tax subsidies, what is the cost?
Yeah, I was going to bring up the subsidies
Yeah,
next.
so if you were to take those two, an average home is probably going to cost you about $15,000. But if that person can take the tax subsidies, that 15,000 drops to 10,000 right away. So for the same system, the value is much better if you can take the tax credits. Now we take the third component of the tax credit is where you are located. If you are in Minnesota, you get very good sun. If you live in Canada, you get significantly lower amount of sun. If you lived in California, Southern California, or in Arizona, or in Utah or Colorado, you get twice as much as sun as you would in Minnesota, and hence for the same $10,000 your value is significantly more because you are harnessing more solar power for the same amount of investment.
And for the average house, how many panels, how many solar pods would have to go on the roof? I'm assuming the roof, but
Sure. Roof is the best place to put it because the roof is always going to gather the sun no matter what. So and it's pretty high off the street, and people typically cannot see the solar panels anymore. To answer your question, how many panels for a typical home? Anywhere from 12 to 18, 20 panels, depending on the size of the home. 12 panels being for a smaller size home, and much higher for bigger size homes.
So we're investing 15,000 approximately in that, and we're getting back from the government, which is rewarding us for having clean energy, at least a third of that.
Sure.
And really, if you amortize the difference over a few years, because you're not paying those large electric bills,
Oh, certainly.
it pays for itself.
Here is the great thing about this. 1 kilowatt of solar is going to save you 1 ton of CO2 every year.
This is in addition to everything that
Exactly,
we're talking about.
exactly.
We're talking about saving the environment.
Exactly. So you save, just in Minnesota, it's 1 ton. If you go to California or Arizona, it's even more because you're going to get even more solar energy. So that's the impact to the environment besides the financial benefits of doing solar.
And its impact to the environment, it's helping the environment, it's helping really all of us.
Exactly. So you don't have to go and dig up mine coal or bring huge hydroelectric dams to circumvent the fishes and wildlife.
Nature
as well.
provides. Nature provides the wind. Nature provides the water power. Nature provides the sun.
Correct.
And we're just getting to the point where we're understanding how to harness that energy. I guess you could say that nature also provides the coal, but the coal carries with it, I don't care what anybody says about clean coal, it carries with it certain detriments to the environment.
That's right. And solar panels are certainly zero. And the good thing about the silicon solar panels is even after their life, the solar panels are basically made out of glass, aluminum frame, and silicon. And so all of them are easily recyclable as well, unlike other forms. So it's after 50 years of the panel's life, it can be easily recycled.
Yeah, let's talk about that. The life of the panel, will it last 50 years?
Yeah, I mean, it has a warranty these days of 25 years. I mean, your car is warranted for 100,000, but you see many cars running at 150, 180, even 200,000
Miles.
years, miles. Sorry. So a solar panel, is warranty is for 25 years. I don't see why it would last 30, 40, even 50 years. I mean, Burnsville Transit Authority is a classic example. I think they put their system in 1992. It is still producing power in a very busy intersection of a highway where you have literally thousands of cars go through every day, and it's performing perfectly fine, even after 25 years.
I have passed by some corporate buildings in Wisconsin, some other states, where they have practically a farm of solar panels. To me, they're much less intrusive than wind power for a lot of reasons, not the least of which is that birds can't see the wind power, and we lose a lot of birds because of the windmills. But the solar panels are a whole different ballgame. They don't threaten anything.
Yeah, I mean, it's
They don't make noise either.
exactly. So solar is a very unique, energy source. We can put it on rooftops. There are lots and lots of rooftops in Minneapolis alone that can power this, and lots of rooftops all over the world that if we use it can surely benefit from all of the environmental hazards that other forms of energy generations produce.
Well, we're down to our last minute, so is there any message you would like to leave to with our viewers?
The message I would like to leave is I think we are at the crossroads of technology. I think the present generation has to solve the questions of how to integrate renewables into their energy mix, at the same time do it in a fashion that is economically viable for all of us to be good citizens of the world.
And solar power affords us that opportunity.
Correct.
We've been talking with Mouli. I'm going to take a shot at this again. Vaidyanathan.
Perfect. You nailed it.
It's only taken me 3 years to get your last name correct.
Thanks, Alan.
I've enjoyed each of your visits with us, and I look forward to another progress report about a year from now. And thanks for coming in.
Thanks, Alan.